Well, Florida State fans, you've probably quickly grown accustomed and acclimated to the winning. Now it's about just sheer domination. It's almost like naming the score the last 3 weeks. It's been that dominant against Georgia Tech, Miami, and against Syracuse. I believe it's 116-22, the final score of those three games. It's almost like the old days.
124-22. I apologize.
124-22. Sorry, I added that up in my head very quickly. I was good on the 22, I knew. Yeah, 16, 3, and 3. 2 field goals the last 2 weekends against the likes of Syracuse and Miami. All right, welcome into Seminoles Live here at the Voice of College Football. We got Jason Parker on the line from NBC6. Jason, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Now, I'm going to need your help here for a second, Mark.
Okay.
Now, mind you, Florida State hasn't had 7 wins in the regular season since the last year of the Obama administration, 2016. What do we do here? Because, we've only been to 2 bowl games since then. We have never had to worry at this point. No matter what, even if we lose our 2 last regular season games and the bowl game, we're still going to end the year with a winning record. What do we do here? Not sure what we're supposed to do here.
Is your memory that short?
There was a lot of drinking before I got sober. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That is right. I do recall now you.
Yeah.
Because you're not a Kansas fan, you're not a Kansas alum. You have lived through even better, more prosperous years.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. Yeah, it's got to be fun and exciting.
And you know what? I'm going to take a moment and be a better man with Thanksgiving coming up next week. I'm going to be a little bit more thankful, be a little bit more gracious. Give a shout out to the big 3 programs in the state of Florida as we bring in Logan Robinson from No Game Day. Logan, I want to give a little shout out to all the state of Florida's big 3 schools. It was a big week in the state of Florida last week. Florida State with a huge win over Syracuse. Although I hate them more than life itself, the Florida Gators, big win at home against South Carolina. And then the other school of the big 3, UCF, on the road, beating a ranked Tulane team with their ranked. I mean, it's great to see Florida's big 3 programs just dominating.
And if you were going to add a 4th, maybe South Florida with a new head coach could possibly enter that fray. But for right now, yeah, it's the big 3, I guess.
FAU with a big win in the Sugar Bowl over FIU under former Florida State coach Willie Taggart. I mean, those are the big schools in the state of Florida. I mean, right? Am I missing someone?
Logan, how are we doing tonight?
Doing phenomenal. I'm happy to hop on here too. We only got 2 more weeks through the regular season. It is going to be fun that we get to cover a bowl game this year. Absolutely. But excited to be on here with you gentlemen as always on Wednesday evenings.
And maybe actually a decent bowl game.
Yeah.
I know, right? Logan, we're heading in the right direction to have a good one.
I asked Mark this question. What are we supposed to do here? It's been a while since we've had 7 wins in the regular season. What do we do here?
Well, we look back and see what our record predictions were before the season. What was yours?
Oh, man.
8-4.
What was yours?
I said 8-4. I said 8-4. You said 7-5,
okay.
I believe.
I think we both.
Don't look at mine.
On our show on Hear the Spear, I said 8. On Hear the Spear, I said 8-4. I might have came and said 7-5. Or I went with my gut on go there. I'm gonna stick in 4, but we might all be wrong.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at mine for sure, but it's nowhere close to what it was.
No,
I'll just continue to say that I nailed last year.
You did.
I got last year, but not this year. I underestimated the boys. I certainly did.
We'll forgive you. Don't worry.
Logan, defense, 22 points the last 3 weeks, given up. Just field goals, 1 field goal each to Miami and Syracuse. And Garrett Schrader played. And they just laid down the hammer at the Dome.
That's been – you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, definitely, you look back at Miami game, the dominant performance there. I understand Tyler Van Dyke not fully healthy going into that game, didn't play majority of it. And then you go into Syracuse, and, it seemed like Garrett Schrader, we don't know if he was fully 100%, don't know. But the game plan was there to dominate and send pressure. I think that's what Florida State and Adam Fuller did a good job the last 2 weeks, is going after the quarterback. That was the game plan, and they went away with that and felt good that the game plan was ran correctly. You look at Jamie Robinson, I thought has been great in the last few weeks, really starting to turn into a star there alongside a couple like Shaheem Brown, too, who looking into next year is going to be a big time player for Florida State in that defensive backfield. And then you move in to the linebacker room, and you're continuing to see Tatum Bethune, Kalen DeLoach do what they do, and you're seeing consistency there. That's something Florida State hasn't had there, the linebacker position all in a couple of years. Is just consistency, guys being there at the right times, and that's allowed too with that defensive line that we've seen the last couple of weeks. That's allowed their jobs to be a little bit easier and allowed them to come down and crash down on runs. And Adam Fuller's running a really solid defense right now. They're on a consistent trend. I'm expecting to see the same thing this upcoming weekend. But this is a powerful, physical Florida State side of the field that is doing really good right now. And Adam Fuller's got to get credit for it. I think we've all given him a hard time the last couple of years. And we look back at ourselves and like, damn, we're also not patient too, as people that cover the team. And I look at myself too, and I gave him a hard time last couple of years, but now seeing the growth and seeing improvement is all we've asked for. And man, yeah, we definitely have. So, and I think too, you look on the outside on the boundary there, Florida State's defensive backs have put down some lockdown. We don't hear about Renardo Green at all, and not enough, just because at least in coverage, he's not getting beat on routes. He's not getting mossed. He's actually coming down and crashing on runs and making really nice solo tackles. But, there's just improvement there on that defensive side, and it's showing statistically across the country.
And let's just be honest. I mean, the defense over the last few seasons has faltered. So the criticism of Fuller was warranted, but they've done a complete 180 this season. But my question to you, Logan, is looking at this past Syracuse game, for example, you're talking about the defense giving up a total of 160 yards to a Syracuse team, and this was a much better Syracuse team than what Florida State saw the week before on offense. On the offensive side of the ball, 420 total yards. Trey Benson with another big game, 163 yards on the ground. Jordan Travis throwing the ball for 3 touchdowns. What has been more, and then I'm going to give Logan credit. Write this down, Logan. I'm going to give you credit. Your offensive line has.
I better get my pen.
Your offensive line has been playing amazing over the last few games of the season. So, congratulations, Mazel Tov to your offensive line. Mm-hmm. What has been more impressive to you? The way the offense has turned around from what we have seen in previous seasons, or the defense? Because to me, it's the defense. And I agree with you 100%. I think Adam Fuller and that defense unit, Randy Shannon, linebacker coach, deserves a lot of credit for turning the defense around. But to you, what are you more impressed by?
I would say, I think on here on the show, we kind of picked on which side of the ball going into the season was going to be the one that carried the team. And I went defense just because the talent was already there. Fabian Levitt, Jamie Robinson, Jared First, Derek McClendon, Robert Cooper, Tatum Bethune, everything was set there in front of you to have a really solid season. You're bringing back Kevin Knowles, who was rising. You had Marion Cooper, who at this point in the season hasn't been your pure CB1. It's been Renardo Green who's stepped in there and taken that job. But I would say more of the offense. I wasn't expecting some of these things that maybe the offensive line, because whenever you're bringing in transfers, and you're seeing it across other teams, so you're seeing it with LSU too. It took a couple of weeks for their offensive line to get into building chemistry, and that's anywhere. You look at the league too. Some teams are still trying to get that figured out this far into the season. I'd say probably Florida State's offensive line, but we got to start noticing too, this has been a healthy offensive line that they've been trotting out there the last couple of weeks. That is huge for for Coach Atkins and what product they're putting out there every week, Jason. I think that's probably the biggest. That's the nice thing that you have there, because you've been kind of switching around with Jasmine Turrentine. You throw in Darius Washington. Darius Washington just has a lot of experience. I'm expecting Jasmine Turrentine to be back out there on Saturday, which will be nice. Plus, at the offensive tackle position, I think just the health there at the O-line has helped. And then, we'll discuss it after the season and all, but, this was Mike Norvell's first season as being the sole play caller and game prep guy. Was he fully, absolutely hands on deck, everything? Yes. Last year and the year before, absolutely, with Kenny Dillingham involved. But I do think that there was some times where this was Kenny Dillingham's game plan. This was his setup for the game. This was play calling on him and a few parts of the season from last couple of years. This is solely now focused under Mike Norvell and the pressure's on him. And I thought that he's called some really beautiful games to put Florida State into some positions to utilize its talent where it's best.
And you looked at what our running game did last season with an offensive line that was much more depleted, and then you see what's happened this season. I mean, you look at the argument. Trey Benson's got 774 yards. I think if he has a monster game this week against Louisiana, you're talking about a 1,000-yard rusher in this upcoming season. So let me ask you another question. Florida State with a dominating win over Syracuse. Dominating win the last 2 weeks, holding the last two opponents to 3 points. Was this Florida State's best win? Because I think on paper, obviously, the win over LSU being ranked in the top 7 at this point is the biggest win. But that being said, that was a 1-point victory, held on, and I still don't believe we win that game if it goes to overtime, because I think LSU had all the momentum at that point. Was this Florida State's best win at this point in the season, or would you say there was another win this season?
I'd say I still really like what I saw out of that Louisville game. That was a huge – I think that was Mike Norvell's turning point. That was where we saw not only this staff but the team really mature, man. I can't wait to talk, I don't want the season to end because this is fun and I could do this for forever. I'd probably lose my mind. But going back and watching that Louisville game and then seeing some of these guys that had to step up with how many guys were going down left and right, and seeing Tate Rodemaker mature into being a guy that could be a backup quarterback. He wasn't even a backup quarterback to me in my mind. To see him mature like that and come in and play and get that road win on a team of Louisville that was playing good and still has had a nice season, but on the road like that and prime time, I thought that was a gigantic curve for this team, and I thought that was the biggest win for Florida State this season. And we got close to talking about many others against ranked opponents, just weren't there yet. But I'd probably go that Louisville game. But there's no going against what Syracuse started off the season with. I was just always curious if they were going to be able to keep that up once they played good competition.
And I've got a hot take, and I'm going to hot take this to some of our North Carolina fans, anyone watching this show right now. Right now, through the first 12 weeks of the season, is Jordan Travis the best quarterback in the ACC? And if not, where would you rank him amongst the quarterbacks right now in the ACC? Now, obviously, it's a depleted group because Miami's lost their quarterback, NC State's lost their quarterback.
See if me and Mark will do the same thing at the same time.
Mark and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I would say second as well. But where would you put him, and why?
Yep. Yeah, I've got him behind Drake May. What Drake is doing right now in North Carolina is very special. They've got a quarterback there and very talented. I wish I could see more of his games, but just going off of highlights that we'll see after games throughout the weekend, that's a talented quarterback. But for Jordan Travis, Drake May wasn't there. This is the best quarterback with, Jordan Travis and Florida State, that guy at the helm right now, just to see his progression. And if you look at the stats, man, you look at it compared to other schools, and understand too, you can look at conference and SEC, Bryce Young, or the competition that he's going against, blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, watching Jordan Travis grow like he has as a passer, as a guy protecting the ball, just getting better with his reads. And then when he needs to, using his legs, that's a scary quarterback that Florida State holds in the ACC right now. But interested to hear Mark too on this.
Yeah, Mark, you've got him at 2 as well. I think we all have a consensus. But why would you put him at 2? And I'm assuming you'd put Drake May ahead of him. Mark, you're muted.
He might be muted, Mark.
Mark, you're muted. Mark.
There we go.
Come on, Mark. Come on.
We
We've only been doing this for 186 weeks, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. We'll get the hang of it after another 186. But Drake May, I think the way the Heisman race is shaping up right now, it's wide open. And so he just continues to improve and just gifted runner and passer. But anyway, Jordan Travis, though, you got to consider that he's done it against a tougher schedule than Drake May has playing over in the Coastal. He's done it against a Clemson defense, an LSU defense, an NC State defense. He's just better defenses, better schedule. Jordan Travis has been, he let the ball hit the ground twice against Syracuse. That doesn't happen in practice. Just an exceptional day for JT.
Oh, no.
And I agree. If I can add one other thing, because I think we had Logan on after the Louisville game, and I watched that game thinking the same thing. Wow, they got hit with adversity after adversity after adversity, with Tate Rodemaker having to play, with Jared Verse leaving the game, just over and over injuries, and they're on the road. And that was, I think, a milestone win to get them going and build their confidence, give them confidence. This isn't a team that had won big road games in prime time. And then yeah, I just think that was a huge lift for a team that Louisville looked like a bad team for a while, but they've turned out to be a pretty damn good football team, actually.
To me, my win would obviously, and I guess it's just the call me a slave for the moment, but I would say Syracuse right now, because like we said, LSU was the best opponent we've beaten this season. Because, and then we're seeing that right now. LSU is a team that's going to play for the SEC championship, outside shot at maybe a playoff berth if they get an upset in the SEC title game. Syracuse, to me, you have this game on the road coming off the big momentum butt-whooping win of one of your two biggest rivals, and you're able to come out and dominate just as much, better as far as from the defensive side of the ball on the road. So to me, against, I would say, a better team. I would say Syracuse is a better team than that Miami team that we saw. So I would honestly rank Syracuse probably as our best win of the season. Number 2, I would agree with Logan, Louisville, because of the circumstance. And then number 3, I'd say LSU. But going back to Jordan Travis for just one moment, Logan, we talked about this at the start of the season, that one of the biggest things Florida State would have to do is Jordan Travis would have to be a better passer. We knew he was a good runner, be a better passer. Jordan Travis, look at the stats. If I had told you before the start of the season that Jordan Travis, through 10 games, would have thrown for 2,414 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, you would have probably said I started drinking again. But that's his stats right now through 10 games.
Shout out to Tony Tokars, man. First time getting the job here. Wow. As a young coach, seeing him develop him. And, Kenny Dillingham's doing a great job over there with Bo Nix at Oregon. Just something seems to click here with Tony Tokars and what he's doing. And we saw with Tate Rodemaker when he got put into the Louisville game, had a quick little rough start there, but then boom, switched it around and led a game-winning drive. But specifically going back to Jordan Travis, just seeing him go out there, connect, put some balls on dime. You saw that pass there with Miami, right on the money, deep to Ontario Wilson. He just is getting better week after week. And, the kind of theme, and we'll talk about it after the season, but there was a certain point too, in the middle of those ranked games near the end there after the Clemson game where, Jordan Travis was not happy at practice. He was really pissed off, and Mike Norvell addressed that a few times. The coaching staff did too. And the players noticed that too, because, they were getting asked about it, but they also saw on the field, a guy that was really determined and to, just ticked off. Those losses really hurt him. And seeing that switch, the mental state that he has, not only now being a leader, but just on the field, putting these drives together that are just look gorgeous almost. And Mike Norvell does a really good job too of scheming this up against defenses. I just like that I'm seeing growth week by week. And, he early in the season, I thought there was a lot of hero ball stuff going on here. And I was like, that's one thing that I wish he would not try to do. And there was some times where he was running the ball and taking these hits, but he's just playing as a smarter quarterback, both with his body, his mental game, his reads. And it's showing on the stat sheets. Like you just said there, Jason, he has a chance to put up some really nice numbers that we haven't seen in a very long time at the quarterback position.
And we talked about it before the Miami game, that the one thing I think we were both concerned about was that Florida State, to that point, had not played a complete ball game. With there have been a couple of games where there was a quarter or two where mistakes were made, and you're like, okay, But I think the last 2 games have been complete ball games. I know we had a turnover in the second quarter, or first quarter, second quarter of this game, but even then, I mean, it's still for the most part 2 complete games that Florida State has played the last 8 quarters.
Yeah, and I'm wondering that it will continue. I'm expecting to this weekend, but we're going to have a fun game to preview next week with Florida, which seems to be where Mike Norvell he can kind of dominate if he wants to offensively, because I'm not too sketched out about Florida's defense right now. On the other side, Adam Fuller's got a nice test ahead with his defense that is showing a lot of good consistency, guys on the running the right assignments. Greedy Vance putting himself in the right positions, guys stepping up. The defensive line is there with Fabian Lovett being the healthiest he's been since his injury at LSU. Jared Verse too, wanted to put out the last little bit of highlight. If you think about it, Jared Verse, this is highlight tape material. If he wants to have that one last game, just kind of like how it wasn't the last game for Jermaine Johnson, but what he did against Miami was ridiculous and was all over national attention. Jared Verse and a lot of these guys are going to want to put on a show here in Doak Campbell Stadium next Saturday, but you don't want to be selfish. That's the one thing I think, at least from being watching Mike Norvell coach and such, and what we've seen so far, this team isn't selfish, but they're going to try to work their tails off to put on some good tape for some of these guys that end up leaving.
Logan, one game at a time, Logan. Please don't ruin the voodoo.
Am I looking over the Raging Cajuns?
I like doing these shows after wins. I'm sorry, Jacksonville State ruined me last year, so I'm going to always be nervous about these teams. So let's just one game at a time.
You could not look past them last year. Maybe this year you could because of them and because of Florida State. But Jason, I've got a question for you,
sir.
Because the jury was out on Mike Norvell entering the season, not just for you, but for anyone who observed the football program. I was somewhere in the middle in regards to, I believed that this team was making progress. I saw development out of players. I just saw an improved product, but I didn't see the results, of course, and we were waiting for those. We knew that the schedule was the most difficult in the ACC, and we all had, I think between the three of us, we were pretty much in the same range in regards to what we expected, but also what was probably going to have to happen for him to retain his job. So has he sold you?
So I am very happy with what has happened through the first 10 games of the season. Yes, and I have complimented him here on the show. I'll compliment now. I think Mike Norvell has done a very good job of turning this team around from what we saw his first season and his second season to what we are seeing right now. My beef was not so much with Mike Norvell. My beef was, if you're going to fire a coach for going 9-12 and saying that's not the standard, you can't say 8-13 is all of a sudden the standard, or 8-13 is acceptable when 9-12 isn't. That was my beef was with Mike Norvell. With that being said, I do like what we're seeing this season. I like the fact that we are 7-3. Like we joked at the start of the show, Florida State has been 7-3 at this point since the 2016 season. And you could argue that Florida State was a play or two from winning 2 of those 3 losses. It was 1 play away from beating NC State, and maybe a play or 2 from beating Clemson. Because I think Clemson, that game, we gave them that game with a turnover deep in our red zone and whatnot. So I like that. What I want to see is the completion, because a lot of what I'm seeing here, and Logan, you can touch on this one a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of similarities to the 2016 season, where we had the 3 losses, we had the 5 wins to end the regular season, and then all of a sudden we go to the Orange Bowl, we do big things, and all of a sudden you got that momentum heading into the 2017 season, and we didn't really build off of it from that point. But I'm seeing a lot of the same pattern here as we enter this final month of the season. So I guess my question to you, do you see any similarities to that, or is this a different team you're seeing at this point? I'm not saying it's the same. I'm not comparing Trey Benson to Dalvin Cook, because Dalvin Cook's one of the best to ever do it for Florida State.
While Logan is the guy to comment on this and give the in-depth knowledge, let me give you from a further take. I just have to think that there is a much different situation now versus you were looking at, for as much success as Jimbo Fisher had, we all now know all the internal issues that were going on and the bad blood and the things that he wasn't getting that he wanted. And it was just a bad situation, bad relationships, bad vibe. And he was, thinking about other places and other jobs, and versus a guy that's just basically at the beginning of his big time portion of his career. And I just think these are completely different settings.
No, mine is more saying from the fact that in that 2016 season, after that loss to Clemson, you're 5-3. You're wondering, okay, we got to get that win to be bowl eligible, and then we come out in the month of November, blow out Boston College, blow out Syracuse, blow out Florida, and come down here to the Orange Bowl and beat up Michigan. Now we're at that point now where you're 4-3 after the Clemson game. Yes, 3 straight losses to ranked teams, but you said it at the start of the show. We beat our last 3 teams 124-22. We've got a Louisiana team that we should, on paper, blow out, and a Florida team we're already a touchdown favorite over. So it's setting up in the same momentum, I guess. But Logan, what would you say? And if not the 2016 team, what team would you compare this to in Florida State?
2012. I'm just kidding. No,
Oh,
not
God.
there. Not there. Not there yet.
No.
Not there. Not there yet. Not there. No. But I'd probably, the 2017 one was going into the 2016 and going to the off season. Jimbo's getting hit up for that job. Players sense that. Well, no, it starts with coaches. The assistants sense that. They hear things, and then it trickles down to players, and then that creates a lot of, well, why am I out here playing if this guy's just going to dip out and leave for me with all this money? So that was already just a bad. That was just adding to be just a bad, horrific season, which it ended up being. And then you also lose your starting quarterback in the first game to Alabama for the rest of the season, and you're running out there with James Blackman, who had just came out of high school and was expected to play. What a nightmare of a time there. I don't think FSU fans want to go back to it, but this going into next season, we've been talking about it all throughout practice this week because it's getting to be that time where we start figuring out who's leaving, who's transferring, and the biggest question is, what does Jordan Travis do this upcoming offseason? Is this time for him to move on? There was some talk over the offseason that this is a lot of college. You think about it, he is a transfer. He came from Louisville. We kind of forget that at times, but he's been in college for quite a long while now. Is he itching to get out of here and maybe get a chance across the pros? I personally think another year for Jordan Travis would be great, and also sets up Florida State to have a big time run in 2023 to where you have a chance at fighting for that ACC. Because if you think about it, ACC divisions will go bye-bye, and we'll get to your 2 best teams. Florida State has a really nice chance of running, and looking at the schedule next year, there's a good chance that Florida State could fight for an ACC championship next year against whoever it could be North Carolina, could be Clemson, yada, yada, yada. But it's a weird year. I don't know where you put it. I'd probably put it, 2011-ish, 2010, maybe 2011. It really depends on what class Mike Norvell is able to take advantage of here. Things go sideways, though, if Jordan Travis doesn't come back, in my opinion, because I don't think there's a quarterback in Florida State's room to be a starter going throughout next season right now. And I don't know if you go to the transfer portal. I think you have to. You're not going to be able to bring in a true freshman to do this. You also already don't have one on deck right now to do so. But we've got a big. This is the part of having a good football team. Jason and Mark, we'll have a very, like, right after the season's over, we've got some big time discussions to have on where this team is going, and it has to do with a lot of guys having to stay. And what Mike Norvell is able to preach and hold some of these guys. We'll see what ends up happening.
If fans hit the like button, does Jordan Travis stay?
Absolutely. And I think there's close to 70 or more on here on YouTube right now. So hit the like button. If you hit the like button, Jordan Travis stays. He will be your quarterback in 2023, and I promise you definitely want to have that. I think every FSU fan looking at number 13 out there on Saturdays would like to have him at the quarterback helm for next year. But you hit the like button. Hit the like button.
That's a bold guarantee on your part.
It is one, and if he ends up going, probably might have to go absent from the show for a couple of weeks and hide.
Maybe he comes. Now, he could come to the Dolphins. He wears 13 in honor of Dan Marino, so I don't think they're going to bring the 13 out.
I don't know. There's a couple questions in here, Mark, about Winston Wright.
Yep.
There was rumbling all throughout, I think, really the off-season, spring, fall camp season, and then there was a middle part of the season where we saw Winston Wright catching passes. I think right now the game plan for Mike Norvell and the staff is to finish out the season. I don't think you'll see Winston Wright Jr. out there in 2022, and you'll look ahead. Right now, there's no reason to put him in a game. There's no reason. The focus right now should be to continue to rehab and get the injury, the leg better, and to where you can have the potential of having him next season. There's no reason to push him into a game against Louisiana, Florida, and then your bowl game, no matter if that's a a month or so out or further, there's no reason to rush any of that. And because you look at wide receiver room right now, it's the production value of a lot of players has gone up. So you won't see Winston Wright Jr. I don't think this season for the rest of the season. But the bowl game is. I still don't think that's going to be a game plan there. It's just not a safe option for Florida State, and they do take it very seriously on rehabbing these guys. But I know we've seen C.J. Campbell come back, and Mike Norvell said that we weren't going to see him, and the season had a season-ending injury. He comes back and kind of shocks everybody, but I don't think this is the same case for Winston Wright Jr. Played safe, and then you could have a really explosive player in that wide receiver room next year if everything is safe and he's cleared to go. I just don't think it's worth rushing it right now, guys. You already have enough talent around the room, which you're happy about. And, you could have Darian Williamson back too, who we saw practice this week, which is a good sign there, who, Jordan Travis really likes going to him on third downs. He's a kind of a comfort blanket for Travis. We'll see if he's available this upcoming weekend. And, I'm really expecting to see him against UF.
Yeah, Winston Wright is a player who, let's be honest, he almost lost his life in that car accident. I mean,
yeah.
that's more. But you can't go from that to. I agree with Logan 110%. There's no point if your last two games were Clemson and Florida to end the season, or Clemson, NC State, or whatever. Yeah, maybe okay, but no, Florida and Louisiana, and then the bowl game, whether it's the Orange Bowl or the Cheez It Bowl or whatever bowl game. No, come back. Let him open the season 2023 in Orlando against LSU, and we'll go from there.
Seminoles at 5-3 have wrapped up the ACC season. They got 2 games left. Of course, the Gators and then the Ragin' Cajuns before the matchup against Florida coming to Tallahassee. We got Steve Helwick on the line joining us from SB Nation on both Underdog Dynasty and on Hustle Belts. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. There's college football on right now. I'm watching some Kent State, Eastern Michigan too.
Nice.
While on here, Eastern Michigan just scored, so it's always great to start the week off early with some college football.
I love that Steve is pandering to Kent State, Mark's alma mater, here on this one. Shout
There
out
it
to
is.
the Flashes there.
The Golden Flashes. I didn't even know they were playing right now.
That's a dedicated alum right there.
Yes,
Yeah, they need to win out to get bowl eligibility, and Kent State's in their first stretch of 3 non-losing seasons since the 1970s, so they can sustain that if they win out for the rest of the season. They got a good offense. It's a matter of whether the defense shows up like they did last week.
I think a lot of folks out there would be surprised if we ran down the alumni list at Kent State from a football standpoint. It's pretty darn impressive. Antonio Gates, Jack Lambert.
Our Kent State hours later on the show, Mark.
Yeah,
Next
yes,
hour.
great. All sorts of great players. All right.
Steve, quick question for you. And
Yes.
for a lot of our viewers who may want to know about the Ragin' Cajuns, fill us in on who Florida State will see this week. They're 5-5 coming in. They're still trying to get bowl eligible. What will Florida State see from Louisiana this Saturday?
I don't know, because Louisiana is a team that's not really the same from week to week. They've had games this year, like last week against Georgia Southern, where the offense is moving really well. They weren't really stopped the entire game except for, I think, 1 turnover and 2 turnovers on downs in that entire game against Georgia Southern. We've seen that offensive performance in week 2 against Eastern Michigan. But then sometimes this team just stalls like it did against Rice, like it did against South Alabama this year, where it gets under 200 yards of offense, where it struggles to move the ball, completes under 50% of its passes. So this is a team that's very different on a week-to-week basis. So it's a Louisiana team that's hard to read. It's not the Billy Napier Louisiana teams that would really assert their will on defense and then win games by just having enough offense. This team's 500 right now for a reason, and I think that they're pretty average in almost every metric in the country. So they are what their record is at the moment. They're not really a Sun Belt contender, but this is a solid team that has shown up and they beat Marshall this year by 10 points. They beat a good Eastern Michigan team and a good Georgia Southern team with good offensive performances. But this team also has its downsides where they get crushed by Southern Miss on a Thursday night, or what happens at Rice. They lose by 12 points to Rice, and that game really wasn't even that close. Or they lose to Louisiana Monroe. So Louisiana has been a very inconsistent team under their first year under head coach Michael DeZormo. So It's hard to get a good read of what this team is, but Louisiana likes to win through its defense mainly more than its offense. It's a team that does like to run the ball. I mean, 3 of the last 4 seasons, they've had at least 3 650-yard rushers. So this is a team that likes to use a stable of running backs to get the offense going. But I think defense is where its calling card is right now, and it wins games basically by getting stops.
If you're a Raging Cajun, I don't know your ethnicity, but I assume you're not a Raging Cajun. But how big was it for them to get that win over Georgia Southern after that 2-game losing streak? How big was it, especially going on the road to Florida State before they end the year at Texas State? How big was it at that point from a momentum aspect?
Well, it's essential, especially because this is a team that really strives for bowl eligibility. They were the model of the Sun Belt the past few years. They got the shared conference championship in 2020. They got the outright conference championship in 2021. So in a rebuilding year to secure bowl eligibility, that's huge. They haven't secured it yet, but they have Texas State on the schedule awaiting after Florida State. So in all likelihood, they do get to 6 wins. They do get to go bowling again this year, and they've had a lot of success in bowl games. They did under Billy Napier. So I think that's really important in a rebuilding year to get 6 wins. So I think the win is huge from that standpoint, where they're going to have enough wins in their back pocket to reach bowl eligibility. But from a momentum standpoint, this is Florida State you're playing. And I think Florida State's a team that's better than its record says. When you look at Florida State's losses this year to NC State, which was just, I guess, a lack of trust in the kicking game and a little too ambitious on offense late in that fourth quarter. The Clemson game, I mean, that was a downright loss to Clemson. They had a nice comeback push at the end. And then to Wake Forest, they just really had a fumble, which kind of changed the momentum of that game, and the defense couldn't get stops after that. Those are 3 good teams, and Florida State played all of them pretty close. So I think that Florida State's a team that's better than its record says right now, and they're hitting their stride on offense and defense. I just don't think Louisiana can really stay competitive with the Florida State that we've seen the last few weeks against Syracuse, against Miami, against Georgia Tech. That has been a dominant defense on Florida State. Jared Verse, I do not know how Louisiana's offensive line is going to have an answer to Jared Verse this weekend. And then you just have a lot of other good linebackers, Bethune, Deloach in that lineup, that I just don't know if Louisiana can really establish a consistent offense. I mean, Florida State has one of the best passing defenses in the country. This Louisiana team, I said, there have been several games this year where they've had under 50% completion percentage. They struggle to move the ball through the air at times. So I think that Louisiana's offense could face a lot of 3rd and long situations here due to sacks, due to getting stifled at the run game, and they're going to need to rely on Ben Wooldridge's arm, and I just don't know if they'll be able to do that for this game.
Sounds like Steve says lay the 24. It's going to be a rout.
I think Steve's kissing butt on the right side here on this one. I like it, Steve. We appreciate it.
What is Wooldridge? Tell us about this quarterback and what Florida State's defense will be facing this upcoming week, because we were talking about it earlier. Florida State and Adam Fuller have done a good job, at least seems like in the last month, of really going after quarterbacks. What is something out of Wooldridge that you've liked? Maybe some things, the positives and the negatives out of him this season that you've seen, Steve?
Well, I was a big fan of Wooldridge when he first came on in the season. They started doing a rotating quarterback system. Chandler Fields was a week 1 starter, and they would rotate possessions with him and Ben Wooldridge, the Fresno State transfer. And Wooldridge started his first 2 games. Every time he came in, he was super accurate. He would hit downfield, and he really had a big role in leading them to that 49-21 win over Eastern Michigan. But lately, his performances have been a bit more erratic. We've seen the good Wooldridge, like against Arkansas State, where he has over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. But then the last 2 weeks, he hasn't had over 200 yards in those games. Last 3 weeks, he hasn't had a completion percentage above 55%. So you do see a lot of signs that he is a first-year starting quarterback in college football. And he has room to grow, and that potential is definitely being shown there. He does have the ability to scramble for extra yards. Not many designed runs are called his way, but sometimes he can leave the pocket, get a few yards, and he has some performances which will show that on the stat sheet this year. But so far, Ben Wooldridge, he's been a solid quarterback for this rebuilding year for Louisiana, somebody who I expect could make a giant leap next year. And this is going to be a great test for him to see how he does against this Florida State defense, which hasn't allowed a touchdown in 2 weeks.
Who are some of the other players that Florida State needs to be on the lookout for, that Florida State fans may want to watch from Louisiana?
Well, I really like their wide receiver, Michael Jefferson. He's one of those guys where if he has the ball, your defense should be concerned because he usually has the ball at least 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage. He's one of those big play receivers. Think of Ty Barber at TCU or Tyler Scott at Cincinnati or Jonathan Mingo at Ole Miss. Just one of those guys where it seems like deep posts and fly routes just are his bread and butter, where he catches a lot of his passes there and he's off down the field and running. So Michael Jefferson, I believe he wears number 3, is the guy that you really want to watch. He has almost triple the amount of receiving yards as any other Louisiana Raging Cajun on the roster. So he is the overwhelming number 1 target. Also, Louisiana, I said that earlier that they're a team that's had 3 650-yard rushers in 3 of the past 4 seasons, just excluding that 2020 abbreviated season. So this is a team that likes to utilize several running backs. Chris Smith is the main one. Chris Smith's also a very established return man. He has several kickoff return touchdowns in his career, and he's someone who can get the ground game going. And then speaking of special teams and return specialists, Eric Guerra is one of their cornerbacks. Not only is he their top cornerback, but he has 3 punt return touchdowns in his career. So that's another name you're going to want to watch on the defensive side and on the special teams, because he's somebody who can make big plays just with breaking up passes and in the return game. So those are some names to watch for the Cajuns.
All right. Anything else for Steve?
Steve, make a pick. Put you on the spot. Go.
Let's see. Florida State, I really like the way the offense is rolling lately. I mean, Trey Benson last few weeks has just been sensational. So I'm expecting a big game from Benson. And I'm going to say Florida State wins this one. I'll say 45-17.
Okay.
I thought I was going to say 45-3 for a second. Keep that going.
17.
You like that score?
I like that.
Yeah.
I think we'll have a lot of
Louisiana can get those touchdowns, but I'm gonna stick with 45-17. There's gonna be a garbage time touchdown in there, I'll bet.
I was gonna say too. Yeah, I think there will be. Florida State, they've allowed 1 or 2 before throughout the season, but yeah, there'll definitely be a fourth quarter something there because they're gonna try to put in some younger guys, and they got a lot of learning to do too. So it's a learning process. But thank you, Steve, for hopping on here too, and definitely did your homework. I appreciate it for coming on here. Also giving us some really, really good analysis for a game coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, catch Steve's work at SB Nation. You see it right there, Hustle Belt and Underdog Dynasty. Appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
By the way, breaking news for those of us watching: Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins just won the NL Cy Young. I know
nice.
Mark was happy about that one.
I don't even know what that is.
Awaiting.
It's Cy Young. It's baseball, not pitcher. Come on, man.
I thought that was a meal at a Chinese restaurant.
He won all the first place votes. That's interesting. All right, Logan. I'm going to throw something out here for you.
Quick hitters or?
No, not quick hitters. How Florida State, we've talked about the bowl games, and there's a lot of different projections have Florida State go into different bowl games, like the Holiday Bowl. I've seen one Gator Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. There's a lot of projections.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out to you the Jason Parker, how Florida State can make it into the Orange Bowl.
Oh, man. Okay.
There is a way for Florida State to make it to the Orange Bowl. All right.
Does that mean I'd have to come down to Miami for that? Because
you lied to us the last time, so yes, you would actually have to come down. I can get you a credential. Don't worry, we'll take care of you.
All right. Thank you.
You might have to carry my gear, but it's fine.
I think the credential will be good, but I'll still come out and hang out with you.
Come on, Bethlehem. All right. So scenario number 1. Here's how Florida State can end up in the Orange Bowl. Number 1, Florida State has to win out. If Florida State beats Louisiana, beats Florida, both teams that are Louisiana enters the game 500. Florida's going to come into the game with a winning record. That's going to help Florida State. Right now, they'll be 9-3 on a 5-game winning streak. If Florida State loses either one of those 2 games, the scenario gets shot. So that's scenario number 1. Florida State has to win their next 2 games. So part number 2 of this scenario, we actually have to root for Clemson. Obviously, we were going to do that this week anyway because they're playing that horrible team from Coral Gables. But we need Clemson to get back into the top 4. That's because the contract with the ACC and the Orange Bowl states they have to take the ACC champion or the top-ranked team in the playoff from the ACC if that ACC champion is in the playoff. So right now, that's North Carolina at 13. We're 19. Clemson obviously will play North Carolina in the ACC championship game. So we need Clemson to dog stomp Miami this week, dog stomp South Carolina, and dog stomp North Carolina. I think the North Carolina one will be the toughest one of the three, but I also think Clemson is fully capable of doing that now that they are back in the ACC championship game. And part number 3 of the scenario, mild chaos. So right now, Clemson is 9th in the playoff standings at this point. We only need them to get to number 4. The teams ahead of them are Tennessee at number 5, LSU at number 6, USC at number 7, and Alabama at number 8. Tennessee and Alabama will not be playing in their championship games. Neither one of them qualified for the SEC championship game. The playoff committee has made it very clear they like to take champions of conferences and put them ahead of other teams. In most cases, they like to do that. So that will help benefit Clemson in that regard. We need USC to lose. USC plays UCLA. They played Notre Dame to end the regular season, and they will likely be in the Big Ten championship game. Brett, we want Florida State down here. Calm down. We don't want to go to the Cheez-It Bowl. I'm trying to send us to a real bowl game.
Whoa, now we know. Now, yeah, here we are. Now we know what Jason is. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to drive any farther.
I know my way there. It's a 7-minute drive from my house. It's fine.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
100%.
Yep.
You know me. Come on up. So we got USC, LSU, Florida. Clemson will jump over Alabama. They will jump over LSU. They will likely jump over Tennessee at that point. Michigan and Ohio State are right now 2 and 3. They will play each other. The loser of that game will not be in the Big Ten title game. So one of them will probably drop below. So mild chaos, a couple upsets. It would help if TCU would lose, but if everything else plays out, that may not be necessary. So this is what we need, guys. We want Florida State in the Orange Bowl. I know you guys want other games. I know Logan wants us to be in Jacksonville so he can just top on I-10 and head over there.
Oh, yeah.
I know he wants us to be in Orlando because he doesn't like to go south of I-4. I get it. I understand it. But with that being said, if Florida State could end this year, regular season 9 and 3, and qualify for a New Year's 6 bowl game, qualify for the Orange Bowl, you talk about this program taking a step forward. This program would take a massive leap forward if that happens.
No, it'd be big if they made it there. It'd be big. They're relying on a lot of other teams. That's the thing that sucks about it. You're relying on a lot of other things to happen. But even if you do end up going to a Cheez-It Bowl, let's say, and you're finishing off the season 9 and 4, or 10 and 3 with a chance there. If you're finishing off the regular season 9 and 3, and then you have a bowl game that you're fighting to get your 10th win, man. None of us on here projected that. And I don't think anybody on the beat at Florida State also projected anything like that to happen. And
so the tiers would be the orange, and then I'm looking at the Cheez-It Bowl, and then I'm looking at the Duke's Mayo Bowl, correct?
No, Duke's Mayo Bowl is underneath. I believe it's Orange Bowl. It's the Cheez-It Bowl, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
Since Cheez-It now sponsors both games in Orlando. I believe the Gator Bowl is in that area too, and then it's Duke's Mayo. I don't want to see Mike Norvell get dumped with a cooler of mayo. We don't need to see
Yeah, he doesn't
guys.
want that either.
Nobody wants to be dumped.
That's nasty. Nobody wants any part of that. No.
I like mayo on my cheeseburger. I like stuff like that, but I don't want to see my head coach dunked with mayo.
No.
Because most likely the ACC champion is not going to the playoff.
You never know.
It's not complete. I didn't say it was a definite. I said most likely. It's probably a 20%, something in that range possibility. But they could, but let's say they don't. Then you've got the ACC champion in the Orange Bowl. Then you've got a situation where, let's say North Carolina loses the ACC championship game. They're 11 and 2. Florida State's 9 and 3. I believe as long as there is only game difference between a place that somebody can jump up, they don't have to take the next team in line. They can take the team that they want.
No.
As long as they are within a game. That's the way it's been in the past.
The Orange Bowl is contractually obligated to take.
I'm not talking about the Orange Bowl. I'm talking about the next bowl.
I'm talking about the Orange Bowl. That's the only bowl given to
If Clemson went to the Orange Bowl, I just stated that most likely the ACC champion is not going to the playoffs. So if Clemson goes to the Orange Bowl as the ACC champion, then the next bowl in line would have the selection between North Carolina and Florida State. And even if UNC has the better record, they may jump them for a better TV attraction and a better team if that's their evaluation to take FSU. That's
Mark, I'm manifesting this into reality. It's going to happen. Florida State's coming to Logan, quick.
The stars align if the stars align.
Logan, 10 seconds. Your prediction.
Lottery
Florida
ticket.
State, Louisiana.
Score prediction? 41 41-13. 41-13.
All right.
I don't think they're going to score a lot.
I'm going to channel my defense for the Florida State Seminoles the past couple of weeks. You say 41-13. Mark's going to put up the super real quick that says Logan, Florida State, Louisiana 13. We'll give us a talk for a moment. Wait for Mark to do that. There we go. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to channel the last 2 weeks. I'm going to say Florida State 42, Louisiana 3. I like it. I'm finally confident. Yeah, I know you've mocked me for my hesitance the last couple of weeks.
What was your Syracuse score again?
I believe I said 34-17. I believe I did say that. But I think this one's going to be a blowout. But also, before we go, on a 100% serious note, for all of us who cover Florida State, all of us around the ACC, we want to extend our condolences to the University of Virginia football team. Obviously, the horrific tragedy that happened on their campus Sunday night involving 3 of their football players who were tragically killed, allegedly by a former football player of that program. They canceled their game this week against Coastal Carolina. We covered one of the players, Deshaun Perry, who was from down here in South Florida. Covered him when he was at Gulliver Prep High School. Great kid, smart kid, wonderful kid. But there's just a horrific tragedy in the world of college football and in the world period.
Absolutely. It's horrific and unspeakable when people's lives are taken for any reason. Absolutely.
Yep.
Jason, thank you for that. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the friends and families of those young people, and go out to the University of Virginia family and community there as well. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys making this happen as always. Jason Parker, NBC6, Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. Get on over to the Discord. That thing's got to be hopping these days.
It's a good place to be, Mark. It's a good place to be. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of Jordan Travis talk. 2023. A lot of recruiting. Luke Krobenholt, 2024 quarterback, now a top 10 quarterback in the 247 Sports rankings. Mike Norvell might have an eye for knowing talent, but can he hold on to him, though? That's the real question. So we'll see. But it seems like Florida State's got a pretty stacked 2024 class, but there's some work to do in 2023, including grabbing a quarterback. We'll see. We got a lot to discuss in the next couple of weeks, gentlemen. Got a long ways to go, but it's fun to do it whenever you got a team winning games and watching a team have a good time with one another on the sideline and seeing your starting quarterback out in the third quarter.
I'm sorry, Logan. Since we're only 3 weeks away, do we have any kind of leans or anything that's been out there recently that of note?
On J-Trav?
2023?
2023? Nothing too crazy at the moment. I think we'll start getting some buzz after the Florida game on who Florida State's after, but I know there's some talks with a few. Just don't have the names, but I think they might go back to a few guys that they were after a while back. We'll just see if Florida State, not including Chris Parson, that one's long gone and not happening there. Current Mississippi State quarterback commit, but I think there's some other names that Florida State are going to kind of go back and hit up the phone with and see if there's any kind of traction there. But, a team that is showing playmakers at the wide receiver position, you've got running backs, you've got an offensive line that's growing and getting better. You now have things to advertise with, and that's something that we were hoping Florida State was able to put on the field as a product this year. And so Florida State now doesn't only just have to talk players and families into things and preach a message. They can turn on film and say, hey, take a look at this. And it's worked for 5-star Hakeem Williams. We'll see if it works for some other players, but they've got to get a quarterback in this class. And we'll see. Either it's a recruit or it's a transfer portal.
Almost made it through this damn show without that word being said. Almost made it through.
Listen up, folks. Next week is a big week. It's Florida week, and it's also Thanksgiving. Please subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications. We may change up the schedule for the holidays next week. So be locked in with the notifications to know when we go live next week with Florida State Seminoles Live. My thank you goes to, of course, Jason Parker, NBC6, Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. These are the guys that make it happen each and every week. Guys, enjoy the game this Saturday, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate you.